Are you ready to learn about the First Amendment? It's my favorite thing. I love talking about the First Amendment. I am Janine Turner. I'm an actress by trade, but I'm also the founder and co-president of Constituting America. So I'm gonna read something to you from the Declaration of Independence. First page. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So to secure our rights, to make sure we keep our rights, it says here, governments are instituted, governments are made, that we men and women make them, and that these governments get their power from us, from our consent. The fact that we say yes or no, from our consent, that's you and that's me. We are the ones. A lot of times when we learn about the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights, we think, that's just sort of, well, maybe not the Bill of Rights, especially the Constitution. That's just something that they do up there in Washington, D.C. And I'm going to learn how the government works. And okay, that's what they are doing. Remember, the government is you. The government's me. We are the ones that hire and fire these members of the government. We need to pay attention. It's we. They are up there due to the fact that we consented. We said yes, or we said no. Well, they're not there if we said no. But if we said yes, they're there because we said so. Remember, the power, I want you to feel empowered. The power is with you. So I want to talk to you today about the Constitution. People go, oh yeah, the Constitution, whatever. You know, some guys with tights and wigs a very long time ago. No. If you're voting, if you're going to church, if you're reading the newspaper, if you're on social media, that's because of the United States Constitution, and especially this First Amendment. You have that right because the Constitution, what's so unique about our Constitution? The checks and balances. It prevents tyranny. It prevents tyranny from happening. A king or a queen or a dictator. It doesn't happen because we have checks and balances that say, no, you can't have that much power. We're going to put a stop to that. The legislative branch pays attention to the executive branch, and the judicial branch pays attention to they all watch each other and say, nope, you crossed the line. You cannot do that. So those checks and balances are very important. And because of those checks and balances laid out in the United States Constitution, which we're celebrating today, because our founding fathers signed it on September 17th, 1787, it's because of this Constitution that we have these checks and balances, and that's why we have a First Amendment. All right, what is the First Amendment? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, of the press, of the right of the people peaceably to assemble, or to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So what does that mean? That's the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. It means we amended the Constitution. We added something to it. Congress shall make no law establishing a religion. You know, one of the reasons we launched this country was for freedom of religion. So people wanted to be free to be a Baptist or Catholic or Muslim, or whatever their heritage may be. They wanted to be able to have freedom of religion. So Congress cannot establish a religion. That's also no religious test. If you want to be a member of the government and serve your country, there's no religious test. You don't have to be an Anglican or whatever. So they're not going to make any laws. States can do whatever they want, but not the federal government. And prohibiting the free exercise thereof. They can't stop you from expressing your religious freedom. Isn't that beautiful? All right. So now I'm going to talk about the other four. By the way, a way to remember the First Amendment is think about a rap song. Raps. R-A-P-P-S. Raps. So the next time you think, what are my First Amendment rights? You think, oh, that lady told me something about raps, a rap song. See that? R-A-P-P-S. So this is how you can always remember: religion, assembly, press, petition, and speech. All right. So one of the things I want to talk with you about today is how can you change something in your neighborhood that you might want to change? This is why I've talked about how to use the government and the Constitution for you. It's not just something they do up there in Washington, D.C. How does it affect you? Well, whenever I give a speech in classes, I ask the kids, think about something you would like to change in the government, or that you would like to change in your neighborhood, something you want to just change in your community. And so they all think about it. And here are some ideas. So you thinking about what you might want to change? All right. Well, here's some things other kids have said, other students. They want street lights in their neighborhoods. I want street lights in my neighborhood. It's too dark. Some students say, I want congressional term limits. In other words, a limit, like to the president, you can only serve 2 terms, 8 years. Some people might say, I want a federal balanced budget. Or someone might say, I want to be able to dig a well in my backyard. I have a student that, I don't know, for some reason they're being prevented from doing that. That's probably a state issue, but we're going to pretend like it's federal. So whatever you might want to change, I had kids say, we all deserve a key to the community pool without paying $20. Or other students will say, too many potholes in my neighborhood. Or they'll say, too much trash. And we'll think, okay, well, how can you can, the one thing you don't want to feel is powerless. Like there's nothing I can do. And that's why I want you to feel empowered, to realize because of our Constitution, there is something you can do. All right. A lot of people, what they do when they think, oh, I want this to change. What's the first thing people do? Well, the first knee-jerk reaction that people want to do is they want to run to the streets and protest to change something. And of course, peaceably, the right to peaceably assemble is something we can do. However, a lot of times people just run and they do a protest, and then the news comes up and they say, why are you here? And they say, well, I don't know, other people are here. And so I'm like, here, yeah. There's no clarity of thought. We are a nation of laws. That's how our government works. Laws. Just like you have rules in your school, we have laws in our neighborhood, we have laws in our state, country. So laws, that's how we operate. Our founding fathers were very worried about mob passion, where things get really unruly and very confusing. So you could start with an assembly if you wanted to. Sometimes you need to start with an assembly that's small, but you could go out to the streets. But I always think maybe that's not the best way to start, because if someone's interviewing you on the street, wouldn't it be great to know exactly what you want, and to have all the people in the assembly and in the assembly or the march to know exactly what they want, pinpoint it. I had a professor once when I was writing essays in college, and he would say, hit the nail on the head in the essay. He wanted us to really hit the nail on the head. I want to know exactly what you're talking about. Well, that way, if you're out in an assembly, in a protest, and they say, why are you here? You can say, well, I've written a petition, and this is exactly what we want. Aha, you have a chance to get things done. So here's how I think it should be done. Start with a petition. Whatever you want to change, let's say you want streetlights in a neighborhood. You have petition, speech, press, and assembly, where religion isn't a part of this. So start with a petition. Write down your thoughts. All right. So what do? We take a piece of paper like this. You can't really see it because I have this background on. And you write down, let's say, street lights in my neighborhood. That's all you have to do, right? Street lights in my neighborhood. I don't know if you can see this. So you write it down on a piece of paper. And I'll give you an example. I did one once, and then you come up with ideas. First of all, you would write things that you didn't like. It's too dark. It's dangerous. I can't see. Kids might be playing in the street and cars can't see them. Write all the reasons why you want it to change. Then write your ideas about what is needed. I think we need 10 lights on 5 streets or 10 lights on 2 streets. So see, you're already thinking about specifically what you want. Here's mine. I wrote this truth act based on James Madison, who said, it will be of little avail to the people that the laws are made by men of their own choice, because we get to vote for them. If the laws are so voluminous that they cannot be read, meaning so many pages, we can't read it, or so incoherent that they can't be understood. I don't understand anything I'm reading. James Madison said, if that's happening, why have a government and why elect your own officials if you can't understand anything that's going on? So my petition, if you can see it there, was about limiting the page numbers of the bills. I wanted the bills, instead of being 2,000 pages in Washington, D.C., to be 30. So if you can see what I did, I created an acronym, TRUTH, TRUTH. And the T stood for the bill should be 30 pages. The R, our representatives should read the bill. A U, that our representatives should understand the bill. T, that they testify under oath that they read the bill before they vote on it. And H, that it's heard, that they read it to the American people. Thomas Jefferson wanted that, to the bill to be exposed to the people for a lengthy period of time, so we know what's going on. Remember, they make decisions based on our consent, if you say yes or no. But how can we say yes or no if we don't know? If we don't know what they're voting on, we need to know what's happening, what it is. So this was my petition. All right, so start with the petition, take a piece of paper, write streetlights in my neighborhood, or whatever your idea is, and then come up with ideas, why it needs to be done and how it can be done. That's your petition. Now, what's next? If you look back at that rack slide, what would you do next? Now you have your petition. You know very clearly what you want. What right would you use next? This is, by the way, why all these rights are so important. And billions of people in the world cannot do this. They do not have the freedoms to do this. They don't have the freedom to do this in China and in Iran, a lot of places, Iraq, questionable in Iraq. They probably did somewhat in Iraq, but Afghanistan, can't do that right now. So there are a lot of places all over the world where they do not have the right to do this. All right, so you've written your petition. What would you use next? Speech. That's why speech is so important. It's not just to say, to express your opinion. Speech is important because if you want to change something in the government, you have the right to say it. You can't say that in China. You can't say that in Iran. There's so many places where you cannot say, I don't like what the government's doing and I want to change it. You'll end up in jail or some terrible place. So in America, we can speak. So now you have your petition and you can say, I want the bills like my Truth Act. I want the bills to be smaller, or we need more lights in our neighborhood. So now you're using your speech. Now you can talk about it, and you talk about it to family and friends. This is how bills are made in Washington, D.C. This is how they're supposed to be made. Your representative and my representative, where we hire them and we fire them and we pay for them, by the way, with tax money from our paychecks, they go up to Washington, D.C. They're not supposed to go, hocus pocus, what do I want to change today? No, they're supposed to have your ideas. Hey, I want more lights in my neighborhood or in the country, or whatever, and I want you to deal with this in Washington, D.C. Your ideas are what they're supposed to be talking about. And how can they know about them if you don't write a petition and get it very specific and then use your speech to talk about it? That's why it's so important. So what would you do next? We've used petition. We've used speech. What would be next? Well, what I think would be next would be the press. You need more people to know about it. You need more people. So now you call your local newspaper. You call a local television station. You call a national television station. Just think about it. If you got something online, say at your local paper, the Dallas Morning News or the Fort Worth Star Telegram, I'm from Texas, whatever your local newspaper is, it's going to probably go on the internet now, and people can see it all over. And suddenly now you have a link, and you can use that link if your parents allow you to go on social media and now promote your idea. So press is like have you ever thrown a little flat rock into the lake, skim a rock, and it ripples out further and further and further? That's what you want to do. You're using your speech, but now what other tool do you have in your toolbox? And the First Amendment, our First Amendment rights are the tools in your toolbox. I've used my petition tool. I'm using my speech tool, but I want more people to know about it. So I'm going to use my press tool. Aha. See why it's so important? We need the press to keep a check on the government. We need the press to say, I want to change things. Now you plan your assembly. When you go to the press, you say, I've written a petition. A lot of times I'm speaking to junior high and high school kids and say, I'm 13 years old and I've written a petition and we've set an assembly for, where are we now? Like October 20th. And we would like, you tell that to the newspaper. And so now you have your assembly. What do you do? Who do you call? Who do you call? Well, you're using your speech, you've written your petition, you do your speech, you call the press, you have your assembly planned. By the way, I would take your petition that you've written and you've typed out, and I would have it copied. Let me see this one at all. I'd have it copied and pass it out to everybody in your assembly. So now when the press comes and says, why are you here? You say, oh, well, I have a truth act and I want A, B, C, D, and E, and F done. This is why I'm here. I'm being very specific, and won't they be impressed? Who do you call, by the way? Not Ghostbusters. Who you call is your congressman or congresswoman in your neighborhood. That's what's so cool about our government. A lot of people think you call the president, or the president's the most important person in the country. Really? Can we get to the president? Can we talk to the president? No. Does the president probably really care about lights in our neighborhood? No. And you would also probably go to local and state government for this, but we're talking national today. The president, you can't just walk up and fly to DC and talk to the president, but you can talk to your House of Representatives representative, or even your senator. This is why the government's so great. The legislative branch, the executive branch, the judicial branch. You can't even talk to the president, but your representative from the House of Representatives lives in your neighborhood. And you can go online with parents' permission and Google who represents me and put in your zip code, and you can find out everyone that represents you if you don't know who your local congressman is. And you don't even have to vote to be able to accomplish something like this. You could do it at age 12, 13. And so you call your representative, let's say Representative Smith, and you say, hello, Representative Smith. I'm 13 years old. I have a petition. And with this petition, I would like more street lights in my neighborhood. And then you say to him, and I have an article in the press, and I have 4,000, 5,000 people signed up, or 440, doesn't matter. It's all important to him, her. And we are having an assembly on October 20th, and we would like to know if you'd like to come. Now, you have two choices. You could just call your representative, and you can do this and say, I want more streetlights. And they'll take a note and hang up. That's all right. Or you can call and say, I want more streetlights, and I have a petition. And I've used my speech, and my local newspaper did an article, and now some national news picked it up. And so now it's sort of a local, national, really big deal. And we have a lot of people signed up for this, and we have an assembly. All of a sudden, your representative is going to pay attention, because they're going, uh-oh, this person's making a lot of noise. I better pay attention to this person, and I better look at this petition. I better go to that assembly, because you've really thought it through, and you're thinking like a law. You're thinking about how you want things done. It's not confusing at all. It's very specific. And so I think there's a lot of power in that, a lot of power for you. You no longer feel powerless. It's not a good feeling to feel powerless and to think, I live in this situation and there's nothing I can do to change it. That's why people love America. And that's why people are crossing the border now, and all these throngs of people want to come to America. Why is that? We may not be perfect as a country, because no one's perfect, because we're human beings and we're not angels. We're not perfect, and we haven't been perfect. We're not necessarily perfect, but we, as Americans, have the opportunity to make our lives better. We have the opportunity to speak our thoughts and fight for things that we would like to be different. And we can write our petitions, and we can use our speech, and we can call the press, and we can have a peaceful assembly. And we don't feel powerless, because we've been given these tools in our toolbox in the First Amendment. And with these tools in the toolbox, we can feel empowered, and we can create change. We can make things happen. We're not told just to sit there and be quiet. And there's a saying that says, a lot of people don't know what this means. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Kids are like, what does that mean? Well, if you have 4 wheels on a car and 3 sound just perfect, but 1 wheel's making some noise, which wheel are you going to pay attention to? You're going to listen to the wheel that's making the noise. I'm like, I wonder why that wheel's making a noise. Well, that's what it takes. In a very peaceful and legal and thoughtful and reasonable way to say, I can use my First Amendment in the United States Constitution, and I can, in a thoughtful, legal, peaceful manner, I can have my voice be heard. And if I get and it may take some time, but if I get enough people behind me, And I really persevere, which means continue and continue and continue to try. And I call my representative, who's there to represent me, whether they're of your party or not, they're there and they're supposed to represent everybody. If that person's a Republican, they're supposed to represent Republicans and Democrats. If they're a Democrat, they're supposed to represent Republicans and Democrats. So it doesn't matter if you're 14 or you're 21 or 86, they're there to represent you. They're there. You hired them with your vote, or you will someday, and you're paying for them, as I said, out of your paycheck. So remember, they're there for you, to help you. And so you have the power to change things. Now, on a final note, what I'll say as we're getting ready to go to our next fabulous segment is this is how we can change the Constitution if we want to. Our founding fathers were so smart to realize that they gave us the foundation, the concepts, the foundation to do really beautiful, wonderful things in this country. They knew the Constitution wasn't perfect. They knew they weren't perfect, but they gave us a strong foundation at the bottom to build the house, to make America better and better and better. And how do we build that house? With the amendment process. They were smart. They said, well, we don't want people just throwing away the Constitution when they want to change, because there are a lot of good things in this Constitution. So they gave us sort of an escape valve. And when a balloon's too tight, instead of the balloon bursting, little bits of air can come out and preserve the balloon. And so that's what they did with the amendment process. So if you want an amendment to the Constitution, there's something you don't like in the Constitution, it could be amended. We have 27 of them. How would you do that? Raps. Start a petition, use your speech, call the press, call your representative, and plan your assembly. So that's how you change the Constitution. If there's something you don't like, you don't have to say, oh, get rid of it, I don't like it. You just say, which part do I not like? And let me work on saving what's really good and working on changing what needs to be changed. So you can do that in your neighborhood, you can do that in your country, and you can do that with the United States Constitution.